Shakespeare, simple or complicated? Good choices for the bard are good for other texts. Shakespeare knew how to be straightforward, as shown when Antony says to his followers in Antony and Cleopatra, "Antony, be gone, my treasures in the harbour. Take it," or as Macbeth is addressed by his lady, "Lady Macbeth, give me the daggers," all pretty straightforward. So you see that if you have a simple speech, then you can speak it directly. If, however, you have a complicated speech, then perhaps something else is going on. Here is Hamlet in his famous speech, which starts off very simply, then gets very complicated. Hamlet, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep, to say we end the heartache, and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to, etc. It happens so often that modern actors will take their attitude from the situation rather than the words, and here the words tell the actor when the character starts with simple sincerity, and when he changes to a darker, more complicated mood. Here is Lysander speaking to his love Hermia. "Lysander, how now my love? Why is your cheek so pale? How chance the roses there do fade so fast?" So there is a change between the first, factual bit of the speech and the second, overblown line, using a metaphor, and this tells the actor to start off simply and then get very romantic or very distraught, whatever the actor's response to those lines is, but there must be a change. Think about a romantic encounter, maybe your own, that starts with two strangers meeting, then goes through the embarrassments of their getting to know each other, going out on dates, finding accommodations with each other, and ending up with the blissful union of two like souls in a wonderful marriage. How do they speak to each other at each stage? At first the language would be simple and friendly. "Would you like to go to the movies?" As the relationship progresses, the language will get altogether more complicated. "I am awfully afraid I am getting rather fond of you." How strange to couple the word awful with fond, but the couple is not really sure where it is all going, and the actual emotion between the two people is probably somewhere on the line between awful and fond. Only when the individuals are sure of each other, and of themselves, can they come up with the simplicity of "I love you." Shakespeare used exactly the same techniques, giving simple statements when it is warranted and complicated statements when the person is struggling to express a complicated feeling or message. Some time back in the United Kingdom there was a train crash, and the railway official was being interviewed on television as to why the accident had happened, because the trains were equipped with radios. He replied, "Although our systems are terrestrial, the topography was against us." Translation: the trains were in a valley and could not pick up the radio signal. Now here the individual was concentrating not on giving information, but on appearing important, or of not compromising his employers. In other words, this is an example of a truly Shakespearean reply in which the structure of the language gives valuable acting notes as to what is called the subtext. This is in fact your first lifesaver, a wonderful acting note for approaching Shakespeare. The subtext is in the structure of the language. Someone struggling to express himself with wit and humor, with metaphors and clever language, is someone struggling to express a complicated feeling. You go wrong if you take a complicated speech and say it simply, just as you go wrong if you take a very simple speech and give it all sorts of complicated interpretations and emotions. Never forget this other life belt regarding Shakespeare. Articulate speech is emotion in recollection, not the moment of emotion itself. At the time of very bad news, or of a serious accident, you will find it difficult to speak. Some while later, they cannot shut you up. Take this thought into a complicated speech of Shakespeare's. It is not the moment of experiencing a great emotion. It is the moment you are remembering it and able now to speak about it. The worlds of Shakespeare's words and our own are not so very far apart, or alien to each other after all, and acting the difference between the structure of your speeches in any script will bring you good acting dividends.